YouTubes, here we are again. Armchair Engineer 85. Thank you very much for joining me. We got the V-twin in the last episode, on the last episode of Dragon Ball Z. Anybody that knows. We installed the engine and we installed the double pulleys here, and now that was the easy part. A lot of people think, well, that's the hard part. Well, if the chassis or frame that you were using is not accepting, if you will, of a certain engine swap or needs modifying, well then yes, you are correct. But this one it's a modular frame. It's meant for a single cylinder and V-twins, but we got her in, little effing around, not a big deal, excuse me. And now we're into this. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna address this fuel pump. If you remember anything about my last engine swap or the single cylinders, the fuel pump is actually back here on this side. And now with the V-twin, we're dealing with it here. I've already looked into it. Like I've already kind of messed around. My whole idea was, I think I'll take off these rocker covers and swap them, because down here, I don't have it in right now, but you can see this hole and this little nipple here, and there's supposed to be a hose, and that is your vacuum pickup for your fuel pump. That's basically, well, that is what drives your fuel pump. So what I kind of hoped to do was swap it over here with this one, because these valve covers are the same, except for this one doesn't have a hole. And then my fuel hose here, I could keep it on the same side. The problem with that is the orientation of the actual rocker arms in here. So without showing you guys, I swapped these out. I tried to put the hose in, at least the hose that I have with this this engine. Maybe you can get a better one, like a shallower, like a shallow hose. But the one that I have with it, it won't work. It digs down into the rockers, and that's no good. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it here, and I'm going to route on the back side here the fuel line, which is a common thing. So stay tuned, because I have to add some fuel line because it's not enough. So down here we got the original fuel hose. We're going to peel off this shorty, this little guy here with the clamp. Hopefully it comes nice. And then we're going to add some new. This would be a good time if you wanted to add a new fuel filter. This one's fine. It's not that dirty, I can see. So anyways, new fuel line. It's about 3 feet. So I'm going to add it and then cut it accordingly. I guess maybe I'll put my clamp on. I'll put this on first. I could slide it on the other end, but hey, what the heck. There we go. Oh, best pliers ever. Just gonna back this off a bit more. Okay, we're home. So we got a bit there. There we go. Okay, 3 feet. Let's snake this behind. The other side. Underneath all the wiring. Okay, let's go to the other side. Okay, so I've got it snaked underneath here. I tucked it underneath all the wiring. And let me tell you guys, wiring and hosing, whether it be coolant, fuel, any type of fluid, it's so important. You want the best natural path for whatever it is. Like in the case of wiring, you don't want it too close to anything hot that'll burn it off. And in coolant, or any type of fluid, it's the same thing here. So what I've done is I've just routed it underneath here, and here's the fuel pump right here, and I just want to keep it nice and tight. We'll look down here because we got my oil drain here. I have to add a longer extension piece here. Otherwise, when I do an oil change, it's just going to drain all down the frame and make a hell of a mess. So that's no good. So that's the next thing. But I wanted, like, you want to have the right amount of tension, but not too much slack. Like, there's a fine line between giving you enough that if, you know, in the future something happens, you got to do something, and enough that, you know, you're not going to create a hazard. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to look to my nipple right up here, and I've got this. And if you guys ever want to cut hose or anything like that, get yourself, don't use pliers, use like these cable cutters. These are awesome right here. Watch this. Perfect. It doesn't pinch the wire because it's not like a traditional set of pliers. It's circular on both ends, and it just makes a heck of a nice cut. So basically, I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to take this cable clamp here off this old piece, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to slide it on this right here. And if you ever in doubt, always leave more, because you can always reduce. If you cut too short and you go, you know, you do too tight, you can't add hose. You'd have to go out and buy new. So when in doubt, leave more and adjust accordingly. That's my armchair engineer's hot tip of the day. And we just feed it on. I'm gonna back this clamp off more. We just feed it on this nipple right here. No problem. Okay, that's fuel line done. Next. Okay, so we're gonna get into some wiring right now, and in order to do that, we gotta take this cover off here because I've got my wiring harness down here, my factory one that was off my single cylinder, and we gotta snake it through a little bit. All right, let's get this engine cover off here. We gotta take the fan cover off here first. Okay, bolts and all. And I've already loosened off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10-millimeter bolts. It gets this plastic engine cover off. You have to remove that plastic air shroud first in order to get at it. But here we are, flywheel. Boy, this thing is dirty. Woo! I think I might bust out the vacuum. So now it's time to do some wiring. This is something that intimidates a lot of people. They don't like wiring. I don't say I blame them, but in this case, it's pretty simple. It's very much plug and play. Like I said, these Briggs are modular for the most part. When it comes to wiring, most of them are modular, but yeah, there's a few differences. So the first thing I like to do is anytime I'm doing any cleaning, no matter what, I've got some mass airflow sensor. You can get electrical connector sensor cleaner. It doesn't matter, but you just give it a clean out. You know, doesn't hurt. All the ports, you know, all you're gonna do is get a better connection, let her drain out. So this one right here, this is our main connector, and I'm going to show you where it plugs into. I'm a big advocate of clean, everything clean. I'm telling you right now, the first thing I learned when I built any projects, when I brought a project, it was a four-wheeler home, and I didn't do it, but I learned it pretty quick, was clean it, like power wash it, degrease it, get it as clean as you can so it's almost like working on a brand new vehicle. Anyways, you got these two dead man ports. These are your ground ports that'll be used to ground out when you want to shut the engine off. It'll ground out your spark. Okay, so I'll show you guys right here. Here is the main body harness, and like I mentioned before, this harness here was the original harness that came with this tractor, and I mean that's why it plugs in no problem. These V-twins, like, there's not a lot of differences between the two of them. Everything is basically plug and play. As I showed you guys with the engine mounting, it just mounted right up. Everything was meant to for, you know, simplicity. So I got that clean now. I'm going to plug in my main body harness here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we got the main body harness hooked up here. So now we've got this connector here. We're going to hook it up, plug and play, no problem. Okay, right on. So what we're left with here, this is where we get into a bit of the differences between the two. These wires here and this lonely plug that's left by itself, I'll get this out of the way. These two wires here, what these are, and this came on the V-twin engine right here. These are your grounding plugs, your for when you want to shut the engine off. It's what grounds out the spark when you want to shut it off. These right here, they were the same thing. However, they were for the inline six, and there's a bit of a difference. So what we're going to have to do is here, we're going to trace these back, because this is a factory wiring harness, and we want to leave it be. It's a black and a white wire with a female wiring harness here. Right there, I don't know if you can see it. And we're going to trace it back, and I'm going to show you exactly what it does. Okay, so a better shot here. It's this lonely plug here, black and white, and it feeds underneath here and comes out here. And if you can see here, the black splits into two. The white carries on, but the black splits into two. And the one black feeds up into here underneath this one coil, and it's got a female connector that plugs into a male, and that's what grounds out this coil when you shut the engine off. Now the other one here, it continues on over to this side, and you can see it here, and it does the same, it's hard to see there, it does the same thing underneath here. It plugs into the bottom side of the coil. When you shut the engine off, it cuts out this coil, and this one, because they're tied together, it cuts out this coil here. Now, your white wire here feeds underneath here, and it comes down here to underneath your carburetor, right there. Okay, and then you've got a black wire. There's a connector here, a female connector, and it plugs into the bottom side of your connector, and then it feeds out a black connector. Now this here is what cuts off the fuel to the bottom of your carburetor. And excuse me, so this wire here, it connects. I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, there it is. You got your ground right there. It plugs into the metal body of your engine. So that is that right there. So like I said, this connector here is the factory plug that comes on these V-twins, and this here is the factory body harness that comes on the single inline 17 Intek. So what I'm going to have to do is these two connectors, as I'll show you, you basically have a female and a female. You got two females. Well, I know it's crazy in this day and age and you can't say it, but that ain't gonna work. So we're gonna have to splice into those two connectors, and I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. Okay, so we're gonna trim these coming off this wiring harness here. We're gonna trim these white and black. I'm basically, I'm tracing them back, and then I'm going to cut them right here. Okay, so I got those two, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice them into this, I don't know if you guys can see it here, this wiring harness that comes off the main wiring harness for this V-twin from the factory. So I might as well cut that connector off like so. This is, yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's what we got here. So I've got my handy dandy wire strippers, and not only are these great at stripping wire, but they'll also tell you, if you look close enough, they've got the designated per groove wire size. So in the event you don't know what wire you're dealing with, if you put it on here and it doesn't strip, you know, big or small, you just move it down. So I just did that right there on 10 to 12 AWG, and it did not strip. So now I'm going to move down to, I went 10 to 12, so now I'm going 14 to 12. And that did a nice cut. So that gives you a good heads up for what size wire you're dealing with, and especially if you're dealing with what we're going to be dealing with is butt connectors. So 10 to 12, or sorry, this was 12 to 14. That's this one here, and it does a nice cut, no problem. So I always like a hot little tip for you guys in the event you're dealing with wires you don't know. If you have one of these tools, they're stamped on it, they will tell you. So I'm going to do the same here. This one will be a little more difficult because it's in tight. Unfortunately, I cut it off right at the connector and I didn't have much of a choice. I may have to skin those, not a problem. Anyways, what I have here, I have my butt connectors kit. You can get these on Amazon. Sorry, that's the butt connectors. Yeah, get these on Amazon. They come in different colors and sizes. And once you figure out what size you need, it's super easy. Okay, so we're doing our white first. I've got it butt connected here, but I don't have it crimped. We're using the red connector here. So on the butt connector, we look for the red dot, and that's what we use. And we just want to be careful that it doesn't slip out. You just want to be ever so gracefully and put pressure in the right spot. So right now, I'm putting pressure towards here, and I'm crimping the one side, and now I'm going back, and I'm crimping the other side. You just want to click and then fully release it. All right, perfect. Now give her a tiny little tug just to see. You just want to go like this, tug, tug. It won't come out. Okay, let's do that. Okay, after some fighting and cussing, I finally got both of my butt connectors connected. Give them a little tug test there to see if they're good. And these are heat sinks, so we're going to shrink them down. I had to reroute this black wire a bit. Big thing is you don't want to burn anything, so just give her little flashes. You see smoke. If you have an electric heat gun, that's great. It will still burn if you think that an open flame is not as good. Anyways, that's that right there. Always look, always give a little tug test. Look again, little tug test. There we go, wiring done. I didn't show it on camera here. Let me tuck down here, but I tied in the starter here. All it is one red cable here that ties into here. This was a little loose, so I tightened it up pretty good. Nothing to show here. It comes off the positive terminal of the battery. Not a big deal. That's all there is to it. It was already mounted into the engine, so I didn't really show it, but that's what we got today. We got the fuel done. We've got the wiring harness done. We've got the starter tied in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Armchair Engineer 85. This is part 2 of the Briggs 21 horsepower V-twin. I'm going to see you on the next one.